Okay, so I'm from Washington and I'm here to help you. So the Sunlight Foundation is a nonpartisan nonprofit in Washington, D.C. We have a reporting group as part of our organization, which I am a part of. And what we do, I am a longtime reporter by training, so I'm one of you all, and I came to the Sunlight Foundation because I felt it was an opportunity for me to work with people who are half my age and twice my IQ, i.e. The web developers and programmers who build the tools that the Sunlight Foundation uses to make government more transparent. And a lot of these are tools that make journalists' lives a lot easier. But like every piece of tech, there's a learning curve to it, right? You know, and so it's not completely intuitive as we'd like it to be. So I would like to show you a couple of these things today. I'm going to start with a project that we are doing in Philadelphia that Debbie alluded to, and it is what's beyond beta. I think it's like theta or something. You are at the very, very beginnings. You're seeing the very, very beginnings of this project, which is really it's a pilot project that we would like to see, if it works, expanded to more markets in 2016. And the idea behind this project is to really map the media landscape so that voters can understand, and not just map the landscape, but to link that, to give people a roadmap so they can go straight from the propaganda to the money that funds it. And that is an exercise that is not always easy post Citizens United. Because as you probably all know, Citizens United basically said corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money influencing elections, as long as they don't coordinate, and I'm sure you've all seen the Stephen Colbert shtick with candidates. And that's a whole other topic that I won't get into, but the point is, corporations turn out not to be so much Walmart or IBM or Apple, because those corporations sell to Republicans and Democrats. And we've seen very celebrated examples of how corporations can get burned if they are perceived to be on one side or another of a very hot political debate. So the kind of corporate entities that you generally see getting involved in campaigns have names like New Jerseyans for a Better New Jersey, People for Better Cheesesteak, you know, that kind of thing. And the important thing to know is, are New Jerseyans for a Better New Jersey the League of Women Voters or the local PTA, or are they the local toxic waste dump? And that's the kind of information you need to know. And oftentimes, the messages are also very anodyne and as opaque as the names. You know, it'll be like, vote for Assemblyman X because he likes snails and puppy dog tails and has a family and is a good guy. And so who are New Jerseyans for a Better New Jersey, and why are they telling you to vote for Assemblyman X? And that is why we think it's really, really important to help voters trace the money to the source. And it's very hard to do, in part because most of these corporations are incorporated as 501c4 nonprofits, meaning they never have to disclose their donors. There is, however, one place where they do have to leave a paper trail, and that is the television stations and radio stations where they buy their ads. And that's what got us launched 2 years ago on this project of trying to somehow assemble all that data in a place where it could be useful to people. As you may or may not know, there are more than 2,000 broadcast TV stations in the United States. And up until 2 years ago, the only way you could get the paperwork that would help you identify the ad buyers was by physically going to the station. Has anybody ever done that? Anybody here? It's a really tedious process. And of course, even in your own areas, you'd have multiple stations to check, and you'd have to go back time after time. Believe me, there are people who do this. They are highly paid people by advertisers, by campaigns. But of course, most of us work for desperately needy news organizations that have 3 reporters trying to write 25 stories and tweet and Facebook and take videos all at the same time. So how are we going to do this? So we decided that we would do triage, and we would get volunteers to go out, and we partnered with an organization that has a lot of volunteers called Free Press, and we were going to go out to about the 18 markets that were really going to be crucial in the 2012 election campaign. So we started to build a tool to do that, where they could upload all these documents, and then we would turn it into structured data that you could then download and search and sort and do all kinds of cool things. Happily for us, in August of 2012, the Federal Communications Commission won a court case, which for the first time put some of this stuff online. So beginning in August of 2012, we kind of pivoted and started using the Federal Communications documents, which gave us a lot more coverage. Unfortunately, it was a limited group of stations. It was only the top 50 markets, and it was within those markets only the 4 major broadcast affiliates: ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, which leaves out Spanish language stations, which in some markets are the biggest stations. So, but anyway, as Donald Rumsfeld famously said, or infamously said, you fight with the army you've got, and so we did the best we could. And one of the reasons I felt very strongly that we should do this was we have a policy team at Sunlight, and they're very savvy about how policy changes. And in talking to them, I felt that the more we used the data, the more we showed the public utility and pushed this out and helped reporters use the data, the more we showed that there was a real public interest in having this information online, the more likely it was that the Federal Communications Commission would expand the order to include all broadcast stations. And in fact, that is what happened. In July of this year, beginning July 1, all broadcast stations in the United States had to start putting their ad buys online. And so we have them all. And now the Federal Communications Commission is considering adding cable stations and radio stations. And any of us who have covered politics know that radio is where the really dirty tricks get played. Mm-hmm. So we have that, and in the meantime, one of the organizations that it was at this big roundtable we attended in early 2012 about what are we going to do about dark money is the Internet Archive. And the Internet Archive has anybody ever used the Internet Archive? Are you familiar with it? Yes, the Wayback Machine. Mm-hmm. It's a great tool. The Internet Archive archives the Internet, and they're very interested in now archiving video, which would include Internet video, but also the broadcast television. And so in Philadelphia, we are partnering with them and an organization called the Committee of 70, which is a long-standing good government group which is providing us with our volunteers to create what we are calling the Philly Political Media Watch Project. And this is the Internet Archive site where you can begin to play with this. And when I say it's a theta level, I have not been fully trained on how to use the Internet Archive site, so I would have to pack and hunt as well. But what is happening here is the Internet Archive is recording everything that's being broadcast on Philadelphia broadcast stations. And they are indexing it by, and we are soliciting volunteers. So if anybody doesn't have enough to do, mm-hmm. or has knows retired people, bought out reporters, anybody who doesn't have enough to do, we can use their help. But we are indexing the video, and we are identifying ads. And then I'm going down to the University of Delaware after this, where one of the grad school professors has some of his classes indexing the newscasts. So for the first time, you are going to be able to go right to the ad, and then we have built a crosswalk to our campaign contributions data, and you are going to be able to say, here's the money behind the ad. So, and it's really great because we have ad contract data. What we do not, and we also have a lot of campaign finance data. But what we do not have, it's very hard when you look at the contracts, and we can do that here. Nothing, you have to triangulate to kind of know what the ad is. They don't have to give you a title of an ad or the subject matter. So if an organization is buying one ad in a market, we can pretty much tell you what that ad is. But a lot of these organizations buy multiple ads, so you want to know what the ad is. So this will be really great. It's also, and this is where the University of Delaware project is going to be interesting, it's going to make it possible for us to watchdog the television stations, which, as you will see from the data I'm going to show you, are making bojillions of dollars, that's a technical term, bojillions of dollars, from these ads. I mean, it has been Christmas since like February 2013 for TV stations in some of these really competitive race markets. And so the question that my colleague at the University of Delaware and his students are looking into is, okay, station XYZ made all this money, all these millions off of political ads. Did they hire a political reporter? Did they provide their viewers with any political coverage? Did they do, and this is one of the questions that the folks behind FlackCheck, which you saw some of their work today, are interested in. What kind of value are these federally licensed utilities providing to their viewers? And I think all of us as journalists would have an interest in that. You know, people should hire political reporters to cover some of this stuff, to fact check some of these ads. Are they being fact checked? So, so that's the background of the project. So just to show you and again, I am not an expert on this. This is a brand new website. But basically what we are doing here is you're going to be able to look at, and I don't know, is this big enough for the folks in the back? Do you want me to make it bigger?
Which link did you get there? Oh, view.
Yeah, this is, just to go back, this is archive.org/details/PHL, capital PHL, just like the airport thing, airport code. So, and I can send you these links, Debbie, and you can share them. So this is the page, and there are 4 bullets here: view all identified political ads, search Philly content, which I think is not up and running yet, ad filings in Philly, which goes to our political ad sleuth page, and then websites that the archive is also political websites that they are looking at. So it's kind of an interesting mix. But when you click on the view all identified political ads, it's going to take you to these ads, and we are just, as I say, we're just entering this stuff, so it's not complete. But you'll see people, and as you can see, there are some Jersey candidates here. There's a very competitive congressional race in New Jersey 3, which is South Jersey, and the Philadelphia market covers this. So Amy Bellegarde is one of the candidates. I think she's the Democrat, and Tom MacArthur, I believe. I'm not sure he's in here yet. But so you can click on the, and then, yeah. There you can see one. And then you can see ads here. And what this will do is it'll play the ad. So this was on Fox 29. And you can see a little bit of the closed captioning. So where the closed captioning is being used. And you can play the ad.
Now, are these up to date? Is this?
It is. Well, this is right now.
Honest politician Amy Bellegarde.
So this is obviously by her opponent.
Will be 0.
Bellegarde lied and took her salary. Chances she'll ever tell the truth
Is 0.
I'm Tom MacArthur, and I approve this message.
So what ultimately I think we're going to have is on these, you'll be able to click through from this link and link to our campaign finance page. Literally, I mean, one of our developers was building this stuff last night, so it's very early on in the project, which I know sounds crazy because it's only 4 weeks to go to the election, but we still don't really have funding for this officially, so we're doing this on the fly. But we think it's really important work, and so that's why we're doing it. So what are the kinds of things you can find out about these ads? So this is politicaladssleuth.com, and believe me, I should have said this at the beginning. Everything I show you, you are going to be able to find all the Sunlight tools on from the sunlightfoundation.com homepage, and we have this tab called Tools. And then if you need to, which will take you to everything I'm going to talk about here today and much, much more. So if you get lost, our URLs are a mess. You know, some of them have Sunlight Foundation in them, some of them don't. I sort of liken the internet to what newspapers were back in the 1700s when, before somebody got the bright idea to say, oh, sports stories, let's put them all in the same place so people can find them. And so, you know, URLs have just kind of accreted and there's no standardization. So this tools page is a good place for you to go. If you need to reach me, I got up at dark 30 this morning, so I forgot my business cards. You can find us on our About page, our team, and we all have little sites, and you can find us here, and you'll see that we're a very funny bunch here. We all have these little sunglass things that we wear, and but I don't know if this has my email on it or not, but our email address formula is all the same formula. It is first initial, last name @sunlightfoundation.com. And we have a communications team here, and they're listed. And if you can't find me, one of our comms folks is happy to help you, or one of my colleagues, one of the reporters. This is our party time blogger. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But any of these folks can help you. That's what we're here for. We really live to serve reporters. We are all about, it's part of Sunlight's mission to make government, to basically build user manuals for the owners of the government, and we think journalists are a key part of that. And that's why we have journalists on staff. So just know that that's where you can find us. But anyway, back to Political Ad Sleuth. This is the tool that, and can you all see it? Let me just see if I can make it a little bigger. And this is where we compile the contracts, the ad buys. And so let's take a look at a market report. And of course, as you know, in New Jersey, you're going to be looking at the New York and the Philadelphia markets. So let's just take a look. I'm going to go on to, just to show you this site. This is TV markets. The TV markets page will show you, default to a page that shows you where activity's been hot recently. Augusta, Georgia. Why would Augusta, Georgia be hot? Any idea? Here's your answer. Senate. Lots of buys in the Senate race there. Ditto with Wichita, Kansas. As some of you know, that race has gotten very hot because there's an independent candidate who is surging and threatening the longtime Republican incumbent. Sometimes there are flukes here because you might see a station that makes no sense, and like with any data reporting, you want to drill in and find out what's going on. And sometimes we find that TV stations will suddenly dump a bunch of revised contracts, you know, months later. So you really need to look at what's going on. But who cares about all of this? We care about our backyard. So let's search for, what do we feel like? Do we want to do Philly or do we want to do New York? New York? Okay, why am I not? Maybe it's control. I'm flunking. Why can I not do a find here?
Oh. Wait, you
It's
mean?
below its search.
Oh, it's down there. Okay, duh. I'm not used to this. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So here's New York, and where is it? Where did I go? So here's what you're going to see here. We're going to click on this for New York, but let me just show you another thing. You can click here on all stations, and this gives you an overview of what's in here. And ignore this column. This goes back to the date. We haven't updated the website because we've been busy, but mandated was, these were the stations, the yes stations were the ones that had to file their contracts online prior to July 1. No's were not, but now everybody does. So every station here, but this just tells you if you're interested in a particular market or a particular station. You know, if I wanted to do something on Spanish language ads, I might just want to look at WFTY Telefutura, and I would click there, and this would be all the ad filings from the station. Now this is interesting. We're noticing that people aren't really reaching out for that Hispanic vote until late in the campaign, if at all. So we're not seeing anything yet. So either that station has not filed, or maybe it's because they're from a small, let's see if Newark gives us a better, still nothing. We noticed this earlier with a lot of, so that's almost a story. You know, it's like, why aren't candidates reaching out to the Spanish language population? We are, I will tell you, seeing some Spanish language ads now, but it's interesting how few there have been for a voting block that you would think would be very, very important. But we can go on and look. Let's see if Telemundo, now that I'm on this kick, I want to see if we're seeing the same thing. Yeah. Here we got some ads. Okay. So you can see, and so let's just take a look while we're here. And I am going to look, what this says to you is, here's your station. The data that we're pulling in is metadata that's attached to the files when they are going to the FCC. So here, the good news and the bad news about this. The good news is the FCC is requiring stations to put this stuff online. The bad news is the National Association of Broadcasters really didn't want to do this. And so in order to win this court fight, which went on for more than a decade, the FCC, I think, made a tactical decision to make the filing as easy as possible. So there's no standardization, there's no standardized forms, and guess what? They're PDFs, which is basically a picture of a piece of paper. So in order to do calculations with this, we need to open this up and actually enter the data, all right? And we have built a tool that allows you to do that. And so nobody's going to be able to enter the data for all of their market, but you can target, you can tell anecdotal stories, or news organizations can band together before an election and say, let's share, which is what's happening in Iowa this year, by the way, where there's a very competitive Senate race. And they have worked with us. The newspapers have banded together on a statewide basis, and they're sharing the work, and they are actually analyzing the data. And this is what's happened in Philly, and I'll show you that. But here's unentered data. So what this tells you is not loaded. That means nobody's opened this up and entered it. But let me show you one of the reasons we created this tool. This is an NAB form. So I'm going to open this up, and this is where you would enter the ad data if we were going to do that. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to go straight to the contract and look and see what it says. So this is not actually a contract, but this is one of those pieces of paper that federal candidates have to file that says, I'm buying on behalf of this committee, and sometimes you'll have this detail, sometimes you won't. This is the name of my committee. This is my committee treasurer, and this is what we're doing, okay? Cabrera for Senate, he's no secret, right? If you're a candidate, we know. But if this is New Jerseyans for a Better New Jersey, there should be a name of at least the CEO or the president of that organization and a phone number. There really should be a list of the board of directors, but there should be some identifiable person on this form whom you can contact to say, or you can Google to find out, oh, that's the same person who was the treasurer for Senator Joe Dokes' campaign, or that's the same person who heads the local toxic waste dump. That's where the reporting comes in. So for the mystery meat campaign, or the mystery meat committees, this is the document you really want to find. For federal candidates, for people who are playing in federal races, this is required. For state races, it's going to depend on your state laws. But just understand this is required, and if it's not there, I would start mowing the TV station, the campaigns, the committees, and saying, do you realize you're not in compliance with the FCC? And I would email yours truly, Kiely at sunlightfoundation.com. Tell us that you found somebody out of compliance, and we will file a complaint. So we will file a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission, and let me tell you, that gets action, because the stations are responsible for getting this information, and if they don't have it, their licensors are at risk.
Do you have these guidelines on your, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, maybe it's too soon to tell, but are you finding that the contact person, the email address of the person is turning out to be sort of like straw people like they do in SEC filings a lot? Or they actually
It's not supposed to be. The law very clearly states that it is supposed to be a principal with the organization. We have a lot of blog posts on this, so I can direct you to that about, because a lot of it is, we learned a lot in the process in the 2 years we worked with these files. And one of the really great things about having all this information online, as flawed as it is, as cumbersome as it can be, we were able for the first time to systematically examine files from stations and find out just how much non-compliance there was. So last spring, the Sunlight Foundation, the Campaign Legal Center, and the Georgetown University Law School banded together, and we filed these complaints with the FCC, and we cited chapter and verse, like here's out of compliance here, out of compliance here, out of compliance here. And the FCC, I think in part because their chairman was looking for a good headline after the whole net neutrality mess, immediately came out and said, we're taking this complaint very seriously. And believe me, we've seen much improved filing since then, because trade publications and lawyers who advise TV stations were putting out little messages saying, oh, you better make sure these filings are right. So it was really very satisfying to me. I mean, this was great, because having worked in newsrooms for years, and like you're banging your head against the wall and saying, but they're not filing what they're supposed to. This was fabulous, because we could, we have a lawyer right in the house, and we could just start complaining. So it was very cool. So if you find stuff that like this, let us know, because I just love this little power that we have, these people who will go file complaints. I think it's really wonderful on behalf of the press. Yay! So anyway, let's go back and look. I want to show you what it looks like when we, and I should say, you can see up here, this link is to the actual document at the FCC. And I think that's a very important part of this tool too, that we're entering data, and as you'll see, in some markets data's entered, and it's a pain in the hunkus to enter this data, but although you can do it, one reason I show people the station view is that if you work on just one station, you get used to the forms, because each station has its own form, and you can find the information you need really quickly. We basically ask people to enter the number of spots, the flight dates. I'll find a contract so I can show you what we ask people to enter. And you can find it all on the same document. And you can just like pour yourself a glass of red wine and throw the laundry in and enter data for a while and do public work. I think this is a contract. So let me take a look. Okay, so this is what a contract looks like. And so that other document is really cool because it gives you some identifying information potentially for the mystery meat committee or even for candidates. Sometimes it's really hard to reach candidates, and you'll have, if you have a phone number for the treasurer, you can just start pounding on them and saying, I really need to, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I can't reach your candidate. So it's potentially useful. So here is, though, a contract, which is what we enter. And what we will enter is, this is contract dates or flight dates, which tells you exactly what days this particular buy aired in New York. And so August 27th through September 9th. And then can be really fun too, because it tells you some of the programming, so you can see the time and hours, and some contracts will actually name the program that it's airing against, which gives you some sense of the demographic that the candidate is going for. And then it will tell you how much was paid per spot. Non-preemptible means, this is for a candidate, this was right before a primary. That means the station, because it's a candidate, the stations have an obligation to air that message. So that's what that means. And down here, here's our spots. This tells you that they bought a total of, over this, from July through the 9th of September, 70 spots at a cost of $74,400. So when I tell you these stations are making a lot of money, I'm not kidding. The difference between the gross and the net, by the way, is what the media buyers get. And there are much, much bigger buys. So, but the other cool thing is, and I'll show you, I'm going to show you, so if we look at New York, let's just look at the New York market, and we're going to see non-candidate issue ads are short for the mystery meat committees. These are the outside committees. This is, here you have Nan Hayworth is running for the U.S. House in upstate New York. State means Eric Schneiderman is running for Attorney General. Andrew Cuomo is running for governor. This may be an old contract, or no, he's up this year. So, so these are all, but these non-candidate issue ads. So let's just take a look here. Inquiry is probably one of these NAB forms. UFT, what is it? Probably a teachers union, United Federation of Teachers, but we can find out. And what this is saying is, and what's cool about this information is these people haven't made a buy yet. This is their buyer, so there's another contract. This is the Federation of Teachers, there's a contact number, there's their president, they've done a good job, they've done the right thing. This is the station person who's collected this. And here's more information, this is what they should be doing. All right, so what this is telling us is, I'm guessing because it's not a national legislative issue, I am guessing that this is an ad that is going to air against or for a state candidate. But you could call them and find out. But what this is saying is, we're going to make a buy, or we're at least thinking about making a buy at this station. So it gives you an early warning that a buy is about to happen, and that can enable you to call the union and try to get somebody there to tell you about the buy, maybe give you an early embed code or something like that. And oftentimes the contracts themselves are filed early. When we started looking on July 1, when all the stations had to file, and we started poking around at this data, we were really surprised to see how many organizations had bought time all the way through November in July. So you really could look, and you can look now in markets and see how many organizations have bought through November. So if you really were a wonk, and had this data entered, what's really interesting in the last weeks of a campaign are to see when ad contracts change, when people cancel or when they double down. And that is signaling to you what a candidate's overnight polls are showing. Like, oh, I'm going to give up on this market, I'm going to double down here. And one of the things that will be really interesting to watch, and it's because the data is hard to enter and we don't have it entered everywhere, but for groups like the Iowa reporters who are using this, they're going to be able to see when contracts shift. And if, it'll be really interesting to see, will the National Republican Senatorial Committee stick with Joni Ernst all the way through? Will the DSCC stick with Bruce Braley all the way through? Or are they going to start pulling out their money and putting it elsewhere? And that's going to tell you at the end what's happening, how they see the wind shifting. So there are lots of good stories you can do with this data, kind of horse race stories, in addition to the transparency stories. I should only be talking about the transparency because that's what I'm here to sell. But I'm a reporter, so I'm telling you all the ways you can use this data. I want to show you what the data looks like. As you can see, not loaded, not loaded. We haven't entered this data, but if somebody really wanted to focus in and enter it, you could see how you could. But I want to show you the Philadelphia market because there we have a group of volunteers that the Committee of 70 has organized for us, and you can see what a market looks like when a lot of data has been entered. And you can see ads are coming in fast and furious, so not everything's entered. But here you see summarized and 16 spots, $25,400, 36 spots, $2,400, $125. Here's Donald Norcross, a Jersey candidate. So there are Jersey candidates in the area, and you'll see the Bellegarde MacArthur race in here. You'll see some Pennsylvania state Senate races, and next year when your state senators and assemblymen are up, and if they're advertising, you'll see them in the New York and the Philly markets. And so you can see, so let's just take a look at the Bellegarde contract up here and see what happens with an entered ad. So you can see that there's more data here. We also have the flight dates. We have a contract number. And we have a number of spots and an amount, okay? Now, what's really cool is that Ad Sleuth has a CSV download. And you can download a CSV of all of our files that are in Political Ad Sleuth, which is a pretty big CSV, but then you can start to search and sort by date and locality, even down, you can do it by TV market, however. But because we're doing this special project in Philly, you can download a CSV of the Philadelphia files, and that's not so big, so let's do it. And you can see, and now you can start to work with this data and actually start adding up some numbers. And you could do it by candidate, you could do it by date, by TV market. So, here we have a scary looking file that probably needs to be enlarged a bit. I'm not sure, can I make this? Yeah, I can do it with here. Yeah. So what we have, a lot of these are ID numbers that are probably not relevant, but for the entered contracts where people have entered it, you're going to see the actual flight date, the contract date and end. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit. 504 is the number of the Philadelphia TV market, network affiliates, and committees, and data entry notes. So it looks like, I'm going to go down to where we've got. So here you see actual numbers entered. And let me see. Sorry, I'm flunking Excel here. Let's see what we're looking at. So anything that's entered turns up on the spreadsheet. And remember I showed you the forms that identify the committees? I've asked everybody to put in our data entry notes, this is an NAB form, or this is this form identifies, so you'll be able to see it on the spreadsheet. And then you can go right to the form. So this is what the data looks like when it's been entered. And I mean, you can download a CSV and it has some information on it, even if the data hasn't been entered, but it's metadata. And so when somebody has humanly curated this, it's fabulously useful. So I just want you to know that that is available. And I was going to freeze. Yeah, here we go. So let's go across. And our volunteers are entering mostly, you know, the fall campaign data. So I think if we look, so there you can see contract number. The reason we enter the contract number is if you're dealing with a revision of a contract, you don't want to double count. It flags for you, you know, as you start to filter, you'll see the contract numbers if they're the same. You can decide, I want to see what the revision is, or I want to figure out which version I want to use. Yes?
Do you have any interesting examples of somebody who's downloaded the data set and done some reporting based on it, or created a...
It's too early, because this is the first really advanced, you know, use of this data. We certainly have used...
What could...
Can you show us how you've unmasked anybody who's a mystery meat?
Yes, we unmasked, let me see if I can find it. We unmasked, let me see, I think if I just do a search on our blog for unmasked, I think that was in the headline. Let me see, do I have this? Wait. Revealed, how did I find this? I should have had this teed up, I'm sorry. Here we have, I think this was a general thing explaining this, but we did, I'll try to find the link rather than spend a lot of time hunting for it here. We have used it, ProPublica has used this data to actually track down the people behind ads who are behind these sort of Orwellian named committees. So that's one way you can use this data. Yes.
So you mentioned it's Ohio. No, where was it that you said? Iowa. No, where was it?
Iowa.
That people are working together.
Working together.
So I mean, obviously, we have a lot of reporters from different organizations in this room here. And you've got New Jersey 3, the Congressional 3. Is there something that we can or should be doing together? You know, I mean, this is the place and time to discuss it. And I guess what would be most interesting is to find out who are the dark money, organizations that are in the state. How would we get to them on this? How would we find them? And what do we need to do to put it together?
I think the easiest thing to do would be to watch the Philly market, and I'd be looking for, I'd be looking in the Bellegarde MacArthur race, the New Jersey 3, but what you want to look for, I mean, it's fine to look at Amy Bellegarde and Tom MacArthur's filings, that's fine, and it'd be interesting, you know, so if somebody wants to look at the ads. But what I'd be looking for, especially, I'd start to look now. And I'd start to just keep an eye on it and see, has anything new come in that's a non-candidate issue ad? And again, it's going to be Philadelphia, so it's going to be hard to, you know, you're going to have to watch and sort of see, but especially if it has a name like Jerseyans for a Better New Jersey, or District 3 Committee for finer...
So is there a way to do a daily check to see what new stuff is coming in?
Yeah, I would just do newest filings. And you can, well, there are two ways to do it. If you go, let's see, newest ads.
Newest ads.
And so you can see ad filings in the last 3 days. And of course, you know, you can determine pretty quickly if it's in the Philadelphia market, if it's of interest to you. The other way to do it would be to go to TV markets. I think this will default to the most recent first, so let me just check. and I think, yeah, or let's see, 70 more. I don't think this will. So yeah, this looks to me like it's defaulting to the most recent ads. So you can see the date here is the date that whatever this was landed at the FCC, I'm sorry. And so you're going to see the newest stuff at the top. And so what I would be looking for is something that says non-candidate issue ads. Obviously, if you want to just follow the race, you can enter it. I don't think Bellegarde had bought any ads, so this is probably a first buy for her. And so we're starting to see her surface. But if you just wanted to watch for dark money, it is still listed as a competitive race. I think it's lean Republican, but it's listed as competitive. So, you know, and another thing you want to see is, are the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee or the Republican, National Republican Congressional Committee getting involved in the race? That tells you if they're investing in the race, they think it's a competition. Yes?
You can I'm assuming you can also search by group that's buying the ads too, and not just by state? Like
yes.
So
yes.
Like if we've heard of a group, but we don't know
right, but the other way to do this, and I'm going to show you, this is another tool, because at this time of year, so I want to show you an example. I'm going to come back to this whole issue of dark money in ads, and I'm going to show you a glaring example that we wrote about why it's important to look at this stuff outside of election season. But I will show you a tool that you can use right now to follow this race, because the way the federal rules work are this. All right, let me go to my example first. There are lots of ads that walk like political ads and talk like political ads, but under federal election rules are not political ads. And I will show you an example of this. So this is Ad Hoc is a database that gathers together political advertising. And the way we do this is we find politically active committees and we scrape their YouTube sites. Most committees do put their ads on YouTube. And if you have a committee that you think we should be following and we're not, please let me know. We try to be as proactive as we can, but we're a little outfit. So American Chemistry Council is a trade association in Washington, D.C. that represents chemical companies. And this is our compilation of their ads. And this headline, support for, does not come from us. This is what it says on their YouTube site, as you will see. So they're very active, as you can see, in a lot of races. And but they've been active. They have been active since last summer. And I'm going to show you an example of an ad that ran last summer and ask you if you think it's a political ad. So here's what you get. We provide information about the committee. So now we're going to take you right to the YouTube site of the American Chemistry Council.
These days in Washington, there are people who like to talk. And leaders like Fred Upton who know how to get results. Working hard in Congress to cut government and grow Michigan's economy, Fred Upton is a strong supporter of small business, expanding domestic energy and manufacturing, and he fights for our family farms. Less government, more jobs. Call and tell Fred Upton his leadership in Washington is making a difference here at home.
Did any of you hear the word chemicals? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Fred is for jobs and families, and he's a good-looking guy, and he wears nice ties and white shirt. You know, the whole image, like he likes farms. And if you were out of the room making a sandwich, you never would have seen the disclaimer at the bottom. And you kind of need a Hubble telescope to see it, right? And there are a bunch of ads like this that ran last summer. And I went nuts trying to figure out, did they all write a letter to did they all back the same bill? I could not figure it out. And I still haven't figured out how they picked the candidates. There doesn't seem to be one Rosetta Stone to determine how they pick the candidates they support. There's probably a bunch of reasons. But this was stuck in my mind because I curate this site. And so why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And then fast forward to earlier this year, and I do a day book. I go through all the day books at the beginning of the week to kind of figure out, are there stories out there that influence stories that we should be following? And I noticed that the House Energy and Commerce Committee was considering holding a markup on a piece of legislation called the Toxic Materials Act. And I looked and I thought, what is that? So I went on and I looked at it, and it turns out that there's this 40-year-old bill that governs the way toxic materials, AKA chemicals, are handled in this country. How they're shipped, how they're just all kinds of, so that's kind of interesting. So you would imagine that the American Chemistry Council might have an interest in this legislation, and in fact, I checked the lobbying records, and they are lobbying on it. And guess who is the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee that's writing the bill? Fred. So I went on to Political Ad Sleuth, and I thought, okay, and because the other thing you didn't hear in this ad, you did not hear the words vote for or vote against. It's always call Fred Upton and tell him you think he's doing a good job, or call Fred Upton and tell him you think he stinks, or to support this bill, right? That's what is known as an issue ad. And as long as the ad does not air 30 days before a primary or 60 days before an election, that ad is not political and never has to be reported to the Federal Election Commission. Yes?
Are there rules about the person at the end saying, I'm so-and-so and I approve this message?
It's not a political ad.
Only if it's political.
So this is not a political ad. This is an issue ad.
Does that make it a political? That makes it a political ad?
No. If this same ad were to air now, it would be reported to the Federal Elections Commission as an independent expenditure, because it depicts and mentions a candidate. So even at this stage of the game, if you run an ad like this now, you have to report it to the Federal Election Commission as what is known as an independent expenditure, because it mentions a candidate for office in this upcoming election and or shows a picture. So it becomes, but what you're going to see is a lot of advertising that airs outside the window that is political. And I liken it to the air war that softens up the territory for the ground troops. It's very, very important. So let's go look. And let me show you how we use this tool. I'm going to go to Political Ad Sleuth, and I'm going to type in American Chemistry Council, and I'm going to search. And I'm going to see 182 results. But Fred's from Michigan, so I'm going to look in Michigan. And so I've filtered my search now using the sidebar. And I'm going to tell you, I've done this work for you. As you can see, I summarized these ads. Kalamazoo, Michigan, Grand Rapids, these are in Fred's district. This is the buy. $250,000 in a rural district. That's a lot of spots. That's a lot more than you can legally give Fred as campaign contribution. And yet, do we think that it might influence Fred? Oh, I don't know, but I think voters have a right to know, don't you? So that's the power of this tool. Okay. So like I said, a lot of ads that air outside that 30 or 60 day window don't get reported. But the ads that are airing right now do. So the easiest way for you to keep an eye on what's going on in Jersey 3 or any race that's of interest to you that's federal, is this tool, realtime.influenceexplorer.com, also available on that Tools tab of the website.
Who does this one?
This is our site.
Oh,
This is a tool that aggregates, the real-time tool aggregates filings that are coming in right now to the FEC, and it makes it possible for you to basically go through thousands and thousands and thousands of records and filter them in ways that are useful to you. So the default page, as you can see, this gets updated regularly, really hourly from the FEC. You can look down and see the newest filings. These are independent expenditures, so these have to be reported within 48 hours. So Americans for Prosperity, a group that, by the way, this is kind of a big deal because Americans for Prosperity usually doesn't advertise in the window. They've said they would. And here is, I saw like down here, there's something, it might have, yeah, Jetpack, New Jersey Bankers Association. They just filed, but this is probably a revision of their quarterly report, so it's probably not all that sexy. But you can see, so this is the newest filings. It's just what's coming in today. But what we have is a lot of filters. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the Races tab. And this is going to take me to a page that filters our filings by race. And we identify the race by incumbent, and we allow you to sort. So I'm going to look for New Jersey. And so now I am seeing all the races where candidates are filing in New Jersey, and you can filter this. You can say, I want to see this sorted by who's spending the most, and there you have it. I want to sort this by where the outside spending, which are the outside groups, is the most.
Influence?
Sorry?
Is this in which site are you looking at?
This is realtime.influenceexplorer.com. And I'm looking at the race tab. So if I want to see where's the outside spending the greatest. And here's our race in New Jersey 3. Because I've sorted it by outside spending and because it's a competitive race, a lot of outside groups are spending in it. And we're giving you the Rothenberg report rating. This is a toss-up tilt Republican race. This is how much all the candidates together, which could also include primary candidates who are now eliminated, have spent. This is all the candidate spending, all the candidate fundraising, I'm sorry, all the candidate spending and outside spending. I will tell you that there are some races where the outside spending is more than the candidate spending. So now we're going to click on to New Jersey 3. And here you have a nice summary page that gives you some of the same information, a map of the district. And this gives you quick summaries of what the candidates have spent. We indicate if candidates are no longer in the race. And then we give you the most recent candidate filings. Now, this is going to get interesting later in the campaign. I believe it is 30 days. I always get mixed up about this, but there is a point at which the candidates will have to start filing what are called 24, 48-hour reports, which means, and I forget how many days it is before the election, but at a certain point, you have to start reporting all the contributions you get of over $1,000. And if the race is really competitive, you'll see a bunch of this. And one of the fun things to do is to download these. They come as like little Excel spreadsheets, and you can combine them all together, and then you can start to filter and sort and say, how much of the money that's last minute major big contributions is from out of state or out of the district? And it's usually a lot. So that's kind of fun. Then these are the independent expenditures. So now if somebody outside, an outside group is doing one of those ads that mentions a candidate, they do have to file it to the FEC. So this might be actually an easier way to track who's filing, and then you could go back to AdSleuth and get more details. But if you're making an independent expenditure at this stage in the campaign, you do have to report it to the FEC, Federal Election Commission, and it's going to show up here.
How did you, okay, so we were in the District 3.
Real time, yes, and so I'm just scrolling down the page.
But how did you get to that you filtered all the, oh, I see.
Yeah, so if you just scroll down. So now I'm scrolling down and I'm in independent expenditures. And you can see that the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee clearly views this as a race. They are still investing in this race. And they've got a lot of races to invest in. So they view this as a race they can win. So that, I think, is interesting. And you can see here, we have categorized. So they are, and a lot of the outside spending is negative. It's almost always, it's like the candidates outsource the negativity. So this is undoubtedly for an ad to attack MacArthur. Here you have NFIB investing to support him. And this is just the most recent, but you can then click on a tab that'll show you all of the independent expenditures that have been made in this race. And then here's a summary. Basically, it totes up everything for you and says that so far in this campaign, the DCCC has spent $1.2 million. And so far, the House Majority PAC has spent this. And then you can see Patriot Majority is in here twice because they have invested against MacArthur, but then earlier in the campaign, they were opposing Lonergan. So this is a summary, you know, sort of adding up everything. Now, here is the really, really cool thing. You can sign up for automatic alerts. And so if you sign up, this is going to ask you to sign up, and it's going to ask you to give us an email address, or you could even, if you're really there for punishment and have a great plan, get text alerts. But you will get this alert. So every time a committee files an expenditure related to this race, you will get an email alert. And what's cool about that is the mystery meat committee you don't know about yet, you'll get an alert when they file. Because they have to say, you know, we're filing in this race. So that's a really handy way. So at this stage of the campaign, I think this tool is the most useful way to track money. When I say at this stage of the campaign, that means we're in the home stretch. We're within that 60 days before the election when any outside player is going to have to file with the Federal Election Commission. But where political ad sleuth is incredibly useful is showing us filings, people who may be filed outside of that period. So I did a story yesterday. There was a debate in North Carolina, and so I did, our communications department had asked us to do a little summing up. And so I did a story that said, you know, the North Carolina Senate race has attracted more outside spending than any other race. And I used our tool to show that by doing this. I'll just show you how I did it. I said, okay, I want to look at races. Here's all the races, and I want to filter this by outside spending. I want to rank this by outside spending. So here you can see that by pretty much of a country mile, and this number has actually gone up. It was 37 million yesterday, so it's now 40 million. I don't know if you can see that. That's 40 million. And it's also, by the way, the highest, if you did just use this as your filter, it's also the highest in total spending. But the race between Kay Hagan and Tom Tillis at this point in the campaign has attracted more outside spending than any other race, and it is more than the candidates have spent, a lot more, okay? So I then went to the page and I said, who's been spending the most? And I downloaded it as a CSV file. And then I did a pivot table, and that was able to tell me who's spending most, and I did a sort by oppose and support, and how much negative ads. So I was able to analyze the figures that way. But I think I actually just cut and pasted this into a pivot table. But then I went to AdSleuth because I knew there'd been spending outside of this, and I downloaded a CSV of all our ad buys. I filtered for 2013, 2014 ads. And of course it can't be, because it's not all entered data, but I just said 2013, 2014, I want to see just the ads for this cycle in North Carolina. And I took the list, put it into a table, and I just eyeballed. I said, which committees am I not seeing in my FEC table that I am seeing at AdSleuth? And I identified several committees who were advertising in North Carolina before the 60-day window, but not now. And then I was able to just go, because I can't total it all up. I said, in Charlotte, this group spent $1,000 for a buy that attacked Kay Hagan. And so I was able to use the data anecdotally. I didn't try to say I know everything or exactly how much money, but just a few examples. So what I was able to say in my story is that $37 million doesn't even tell you everything. It doesn't tell you all the outside money in this race. And I tried to explain, as I did to you, that the way that money can go into the race without ever being reported. So, so that's just giving you an example of how I used our tools to tell a story. So, I want to show you two other things that I think will be useful, and one thing that I need your help on. So Scout is a tool that is amazing. It compiles information from the floor of the United States Congress, the legislation of the United States Congress, legislation that's been introduced in all 50 state legislatures, court activity in federal courts, GAO reports, and the Federal Register, and allows you to search and also set up alerts. So and one reason we think this is important is on topics where things get tied up in Congress because of partisan gridlock, or there's maybe too much scrutiny on lobbying in Congress, people tend to try to take an end around and get their work done in state legislatures. So we think it's really important to track that. So for example, you can take an issue and search for it, and you can see that obviously this is an issue that gets talked about in Congress, and we could view more bills in Congress here, court opinions, and we could view more of those, federal regulations, state bills, and oversight reports, etc., speeches in Congress. Now, so if you are covering a bill that's been introduced in the Jersey State Legislature about a topic, I suggest that you enter the topic here, and you can find out if other state legislatures are doing or have done similar laws. And the more sophisticated your search, the better the results you're going to get. Marijuana, I'm going to get a lot of noise. But if you have specific legislative language or statute citations or something like that, you can get really specific, and you can find out pretty quickly. You can put whole phrases in here, in your search.
So if it was like S1303
right.
or something. And
yeah. Or you could find out, I used one a lot of times for abortion bills. I use the word fetal heartbeat. And this is powered by our tool Open States, which I have a tab up here. And if you're only doing state legislation, it's better to set up your email alerts here, but you can do the same thing. This is also a great way to find out names and addresses of legislators. So you don't need that in New Jersey, but say you're writing about a bill and you want to reach somebody in the Alabama legislature, you can find them really easily here by just going to Alabama and searching. And this is going to give you a lot of information about them, and you can look up names of legislators and whatever you want. Here's a name I know, because he's running for Senate, and he's in North Carolina. And so this is going to give me all the bills. He's on a lot of bills because he's the House Speaker. I think I lost my Tontillas here. And then this is the kind of information you get. Tells you a little bit about his campaign contributions, pulls some blog coverage, but the most important thing is gives you phone numbers and emails. So if you're trying to get hold of somebody in another state, and it's really the easiest way to get this information. You can beat your head against a wall trying to get that sometimes. And last but not least, my favorite Sunlight tool, Political Party Time. Has anybody used this? Yay! Tell us why. What's Political Party Time good for?
Well, I cover Governor Christie, so it's great to see. They were terrible about giving the schedule ahead of time. Like the RGA gave me the schedule for today, tomorrow, and Friday yesterday. So sometimes Party Time will pick it up either because someone sends an invite or like the press in another state covered it, and I don't have to track newspapers in all 50 states to see where he's going to be when.
So this is the really one of the few databases we operate that we build ourselves. We don't ingest this data from the federal government. We have people send us, and please, I invite you to do so, invitations or information about political parties. You can do so anonymously. We protect our sources. We get invites from just about everywhere. And what we do is we take that and we turn it into structured data. So any piece of information that's on the invitation, like date, time, place, beneficiary, who the hosts are, they're usually lobbyists, and then it becomes searchable by all of those terms. It's a fabulous database. It's only as good as the data we get. So if you hear about a fundraiser, see if you can get the invitation. If you don't have the invitation and you write about the fundraiser, email us the clip. We will put it in Party Time. And then you have a database that you can go back to, and when there's a piece of legislation on the floor and you're wondering why Assemblyman X or Congressman Y is voting the way he or she is, sometimes you can find very interesting information on Party Time about who's held fundraisers. There's also a fair degree of money porn here, just like the amounts involved and the venues involved really tell you a lot about how the other half lives. And then we have a calendar, so you can look by date. Believe me, we have a lot of invitations. We have more than 20,000 invitations in Political Party Time, representing 6 years of gathering, but it is only the tip of the iceberg. And so I really encourage you to contribute to Party Time. It's kind of like a journalistic Switzerland. Everybody can use it, and it's really useful. But the other thing I would encourage you to think about is building your own Party Time, using our data to create your own feed. And I'll show you an example of that. This is a blog in Maine. This is a small blog. It's pretty much of a mom and pop operation, and they try to keep tabs on politics and make politics transparent. They're very much in our kind of line of work in Maine. But you can see what they have done here is they have taken Party Time data, and it's very, very easy to localize this, and created a widget. And the woman who runs this told me that the reason she likes this is that their stock in trade is more investigative stories, so they're not updating their website all the time, but like everybody who's on the web, there's this imperative to get new stuff on there. And this is a way to get new stuff on their site mechanically, because the feed comes in mechanically from us. And you see, I'm not. And so you can see that these are fundraisers, and this is all coming from our site. And it will come straight to us. This is one of my favorite ones, Who Let the Dogs Out fundraiser. There's like a lot of folkloric stuff on here, but it takes you to our site, and here's the details. And as you can see, this is probably a state legislative candidate. You know, if it were President Obama, you could add zeros to every category here. But here's a copy of the invitation. So again, we like to show the original documents. It's very, and some of these are very, very funny.
So if somebody wants to do this and they don't know how, what should they do?
Call me. If you are a member of INN, the Investigative News Network, call INN, because Naomi's site, Pine Tree Watchdog, which I showed you, uses the CMS Largo that INN has created for some of their members. And if you are on Largo, it's going to be really, really easy, because all the work that she did to get this installed has now made it easy for you.
So we have a lot of sites in New Jersey using something that we call Blargo, that was developed off of Largo but made for New Jersey sites to include Broad Street Ad Network. So maybe we should work with them on, you know, on getting.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And we already have a good relationship with INN.
And I am all for this because we have a lot of Jersey stuff already, so you know you're going to feed this, but I think by putting this out there, it will get us more invitations. Yeah, and while Party Time started as a site to do Congress, we rapidly grew. And I really think, my own experience as a reporter tells me the best stories are under the rocks that haven't been turned over. And so I would really like to see this style of reporting drilled down to a more local level, because I really think if we could start getting invitations for fundraisers for state legislative candidates, first of all, state legislative candidates, the guy in the White House right now used to be a state legislator. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be fabulous if we had a string of IOUs going all the way back? I mean, this is accountability journalism. I'm not saying there's anything illegal about this, but if a member of a legislature makes a decision for a company or for a donor, it might very well be in the public interest, but they should have to justify that. And the public should know if they're doing this for somebody who held a fundraiser for them. The reason fundraisers and the hosts are particularly interesting is it's effectively bundling, okay? Because a host of a fundraiser is putting his or her social network to work for the candidate. So they're not giving just $10,000 or $1,000 or $100. They're a force multiplier. So that's why it's really important to know about this.
In New Jersey, they're all buying.
So to be able, and boy, zoning boards and city councils, woo, that's would really be cool. So persuading.
Do you have a hashtag for this? Like, for example, right, I know that you're clearing.
I forget, I'm sure we do. I forget what it is.
Because if people are already, you know, could put out a PP time.
Yeah, we have it's at our Twitter handle is at SF Party Time, at SF for Sunlight Foundation Party Time. So yeah, follow us, and we love it when people tweet out stuff, you know, and as I say, I think if people put this on their local sites and then solicit for these invitations, and you know, when you're talking to people, if they say I'm going to a fundraiser, say, oh, can I have the invitation? Mm-hmm. And even if sometimes the politicians will, they're really, you know, a lot of politicians give us invites, or event planners, because they're very proud of it, or as you all know, politicians like to let the opposition know if they've had a big honkin' fundraiser. So there's a lot, and then other times, you know, we have lobbyists who are going to these fundraisers, but they hate them, so they'll slip us the invites, or so there are lots of ways to get the invites, or you can ask your colleagues if you know somebody who's a social reporter, or covers the legal beat, or covers the business beat, and the types of people who would get invited to these things, just ask them to ask their sources if they could slip you the invites. You know, there's all kinds of ways to get this stuff. And sometimes the general public will just do it.
And
so
anything, like if I get one for Montclair.
Local dog catcher, I'm for it, because you know today's local dog catcher is going to be tomorrow's U.S. Senator.
We get these, yes.
I did a story on I requested the mayor that worked in Jersey City, I requested his schedule, and he redacted almost half of it and said to us, this is really to keep confidential. These poor private people, they don't need to know. You know, these private citizens, and we ran the story and posted the whole schedule, and I got tons of emails the next day. He was at a fundraiser that day. Here's this invitation with his name on it, and he was a speaker.
Upload. Yeah. You know, that's what and because here's the thing. I don't, you know, at some point it'll become a data entry problem for us. I mean, we enter the data, but if I had to go to a foundation and say, please give us money so we can hire an additional person to enter data, that would be a great problem to have. So at some point I might say, but right now I would love to have that because, we might crowdsource the data entry. But right now we're doing it in-house, but what's the beauty, and that's the beauty for you, we're doing the hard work, you can just take the feed. And the beauty of that for you though is, if you start entering local stuff, you can start to do what we did for the 5th anniversary of Party Time, which is once you get a critical mass, you can start to map fundraisers. So that becomes very, very interesting. So let's see, this was a map that we created, and these are the Washington fundraisers, and as you can see, they are centered right around the Capitol, and then kind of scroll out, and we've identified by location. So we had a lot of fun with this. So, you know, I'm hovering over Charlie Palmer's Steakhouse. It happens to be very close to the Capitol. We put how many parties there had been, how many were Republican, how many Democrat, and we even included the Yelp review with recommendations for what to order if you want to party like a politician. So we had a lot of fun with this. But, you know, again, you could see doing something like this, and the way you do it is, and we also, we had all kinds of fun with it, you know, when we have it national, but the way you do this is when you go to Political Party Time, this Data API tab gives you different ways to interact with the data, including an ability to download a spreadsheet, to interact with API, to build an RSS feed, and these are the ways that you can build a feed that's customized to you. Yeah, what I was saying, the fun thing is we, you know, just for yucks is we included Yelp reviews of all the restaurants. But the one thing I will say, if you're thinking about, so anyway, the way Naomi, the main blogger, is using this is, you know, she gets the feed and she's kind of keeping an eye on it. And the feed is a nice, fresh thing. And then every once in a while, when she has time, she might blog about a particular fundraiser. On the Party Time site, we also blog, and we generally blog once a week. We have a standing once a week feature, and then if there's something big, we'll pop in. And we also have a Party Time Tumblr where we kind of repurpose some of this stuff in wacky ways, designed to reach out to the younger crowd. So there's lots of ways you can use this, and we, you know, the invitations are graphically quite appealing, or you can do crazy things with it. But I will say, you can blog about this in whatever way you want, but what we've done is we have taken a rather satirical approach rather than accusatory, and saying, look at all this terrible money being raised. I think we tend to be funny and tongue-in-cheek about it, satirical. So, but I still think the message gets across, and certainly the data is there for people to use to do quite serious reporting, and people have. And we have too. But the blog itself, the main Party Time blog, and it's just kind of funny and lighthearted, and it's a great read. You know, it makes it funny, and so not all data journalism has to be serious. So that just gives you. But again, you know, you're free to take the same tone or to do something completely different. We're just trying to have a little fun and also keep our sources pouring in with those invites. But we can also sort this by committee, which is kind of interesting. I think this tab is broken, but the idea would be if you want to see all the fundraisers for a particular committee, you can do that. So there's lots of ways to search and sort this data. And everything that Sunlight builds is open source, so you're free to take our data and mash it up or change it, you know, in whatever way suits you, and combine it with the New Jersey legislative calendar or whatever. You know, I think there are all kinds of ways you can use this data that would be helpful. So, and the reason I focused on Party Time is it is a crowdsourced tool. So the more you give us invitations, the better this database is going to be and the more useful it will be to you. And I think if you start uploading local stuff, you'll eventually get to a point where you have a critical mass and you can do like map a year and fundraisers in Montclair, or you know, where are the fundraisers being held. But you can also enter really weird, you can't believe the things that'll get hits on Party Time. And the reason alligator hits is there are more than one fundraiser that involves alligator hunting. So I think, I forget which one is the one that has a very funny fundraiser, or very funny picture. Yeah. So, and another popular fundraising draw are guns. We got tons of guns. Gun giveaway. This was a gun shoot, gun range event. So, like, there are lots and lots of fundraisers that involve shooting or gun raffles. And there was one fundraiser, I think it was for a state legislator. I'd have to look around here, but you know how usually the fundraisers, there's tiers, and the tiers are usually related to your access to the candidate. So if you give $100, you get in the general reception, and if you give $500, you get in a photo, you know, the grip and grin, and if you give $1,000, you get into dinner with the candidate, or something like that. Well, this fundraiser was, the tiers of contributions were linked to how many rounds of ammo you got to shoot off. So the bigger the dollar amount, the more ammo you got to shoot off. It was really great. So these things can be hilarious. So they can they can yield one-off hilarious stories, or sometimes stories that are not so hilarious, just based on who's raising the money or who's hosting the fundraiser or how much money they're asking for. But I would think in Jersey, where you have all these people who have multiple offices, and this could be very, very interesting. So that's just another website. So you're probably brain dead with all the data I've inundated you with, but please, I am very apologetic that I forgot my business cards, but I am very easy to reach via the Sunlight website, or just email me, KKIELY@sunlightfoundation.com, and I'm really happy to help you, or if I'm not available, I have colleagues who can help you, and we are really eager to partner if you want to do a Party Time franchise, if you have a story or a project you're working on, and want to brainstorm, or if you're using our tools and you can't figure something out, or even sometimes there are things that you can't do with our tools from the website, but we can do a special, kind of pull the data behind the scenes, and our developers can do that work for you, and they are very willing to do that as well. So